Hello, and welcome to today's Coppice Dev stream. For those of you who may not know who I am Martin Pilkington, and I run a small software company in the northwest of England called M-Cube Software. And when I'm not doing contract work for other people, I am working on my own apps, such as Coppice, which is what we're going to be working on today. So, for those of you who have been following along, you'll know that we have been working through the new version of Coppice, which has a lot of features to do with images and improving image pages. So we've added rotation, cropping, and on Friday we managed to get image linking working really well. So what we want to get done today is working through three things. The first one is actually unrelated to any of that stuff, and it is extracting some parts of the Coppice core framework into separate libraries. Now, the reason for wanting to do this is that I have another app I'm working on called Streamline, which is what I'm working on Wednesday evening streams. And things we want there are various bits of shared code, but also the model infrastructure code from Coppice. Both of those are going to be very useful. So what I want to do is extract those both into separate libraries. So I figured that would be something, initially I thought it's something to do off stream, but I figured it would be quite interesting to do on stream to show how you go about extracting this stuff. And I'll be learning a little something along the way too, because I'm going to try using Swift packages for these to see if we can extract them out that way. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. The next thing that I want to get done on the stream is getting everything that we have worked on previously working together, because rotation works, cropping works, image linking works. The problem is they don't all work together. So if you crop something then rotate it, the crop doesn't rotate and the hotspots don't rotate, and if you crop something the hotspots don't show up correctly. So we need to get all that working. And then finally there are a few bugs that have appeared thanks to macOS 12, a few layout bugs and visual bugs that we're going to work through and see if we can get those fixed as well. So if we switch over to our main window, what we're going to do is start by working out what we need to bring over. So if I had the sidebar, you can see, if I close those tests, we've got Coppice core here. We've got various extensions here for various bits of AppKit and core graphics and array there. I believe we may have more extensions up here. Yeah, a lot of these could move to Coppice core as well, and in turn move to this other framework. Okay, so right, so we have this, we have our view model alert. Right, so I think the key thing we want to extract is the model infrastructure. So if we do that first, and then we can look at extracting these, because in a sense we may want to end up with multiple of these, because we may want to end up with NS range can be in foundation. That can be effectively in the foundation, but our NS image stuff needs to be in AppKit, as do NS Edge insets. And up here, in the shadow appearance, table view, Bezier path, NS menu, attributed strings can be in text. So those are both AppKit. That can be shared. They're the same. Right. I think what we're going to do is first going to extract those, and then we're probably going to create two things. There's going to be a probably an M3 extensions framework and then an M3 AppKit framework. Because at the moment on GitHub, I open a new window and I go to GitHub / I believe it's mcubed.sw. Yeah, so if I show this, I already have a bunch of frameworks here that I haven't actually, I mean, you can see, I haven't touched these since 2013. So, M3 Foundation, what do we have in here? Is there anything useful? A CS3 value transformer, a file size value transformer, we don't need that anymore. A URL connection operation, don't really need that. Most of the, yeah, a lot of these aren't needed with Swift. Counted that. Dictionary. Yeah, a lot of these aren't really useful. Let's key value observing. Don't even need those. Object. Perform block after delay would be useful, but you have dispatch async for that. And unfortunately that is not really available to us in Swift. The Objective-C funness. Into from XML representations, string. Don't need those, and the AppKit ones probably don't need because a lot of these are from something. So Access Review Manager. I have no idea what that is. Column visibility controller. Right. That's useful to know exist. Might have to look at that. Don't need all the constraint stuff, don't need navigation stuff, preferences stuff, I've got my own stuff. Let's see, there's a path. Constraint is stuff we don't need. So yeah, I don't think we need most of this stuff because it's all stuff that I've done before. In fact, let's have a quick look. What do we have for an NS pop-up button? Yeah, none of these are particularly necessary. But the column visibility controller may be useful for streamline. And M3 code data, I mean, this is still useful for anyone who does code data. Now, I'm not using code data myself, but some of this is stuff that you don't need anymore. So there was M3 Code Data Manager, which handled setting all your persistent coordinator and model and context up. I believe there's something that handles this for you already. What do we have? Yeah, something for handling test fixtures with code data. We manage object factory. That's for test. But I mean, the key thing was a JSON atomic store, so that you could have code data write to and read from a JSON store. And then there are a few things. Hi Dragon Dust. I am not too bad. I have had a fairly productive weekend. Managed to get various bits of my setup tidied up. Did some rather enjoyable cable management, which has been overdue by about 5 years. So I managed to get that done, and yeah, just looking forward to getting some of this work done today. How are you? Have a look here. Let's see if we can add this as a Swift. Oh. Okay. That's a bug. Can you not add a new package to an existing workspace? Good to hear that you're doing fine. Are you up to much today while watching the stream? I guess we'll have to create a new package. So, go mcubed apps. And we'll call this M3 data. Yeah, just M3 data. Oh. Right. It'd be nice if there was some, because I've not actually created a Swift package before. And part of me... part of me is inclined just to create an Xcode project for this. To file. Let's have a look for the Swift package manager. Swift package. Care about adding to add Swift make Xcode right package. Hmm. Hey Sinister, how are you doing today? I am not too bad, though currently a little puzzled at how to do something. Right, how? It'd be nice if Dave was here, because Dave will probably know how to do this, considering he builds the Swift package index. Let's have a look at some transcripts and see what we can find here. I don't want to convert. I know. Let's have a look at Sparkle. See how they've done it, because I know Sparkle has Netscode project, but they also have a package that's Swift. Hey. Data. Okay. So the package just downloads the binary. Swift package that builds Xcode target. All I want to do is create an Xcode project and use the Xcode project for my library. But I don't want to make it just a Swift package. I want it to use the Xcode project, because you can actually edit an Xcode project without needing to know everything in advance. Yeah, I know you can directly open it, because that is what has happened here, but the problem is I don't get any build settings. I don't get anything, because you've got to stick it all in here, and this is not a very usable way to do anything. It really needs to be a UI. So what I want is an Xcode project, and all I want Swift Package Manager to do is basically check out the Xcode project into my app, because this framework is going to need to be included in multiple targets, and I want it to be a framework so I can build it in. So you just get .library, but that is building it as not as a framework. This rate, I'm probably just going to end up using Git submodules, because they're easier to deal with. Add. That's Swift. Let's go. I want to add dependencies. I've got a project that I want to. Let's try this. Create XC framework with Swift package. Is this going to be about embedding as well? Okay, how to build an XC framework. Okay, they don't support it. Go away with all your pop-ups. Take me back to when the web didn't have pop-ups all over the place. Create the binary frameworks. You know what? Forget Swift Package Manager. Let's just do this the old-fashioned way. Request framework. M3 data. And we're going to create this in frameworks. And we're going to create a Git repository. And we'll add it to right. So if we shift this down here, get data now. So let's move all of this infrastructure needs to move out and into here. Right, try and find it, make sure that's in the correct place. It is. Okay, let us delete this. Then what we want to do is Tourist. I've not heard of that. Let's have a Google. One second, my display appears to be messing up. Oh, is it in? Place it. macOS. Turn that off. There we go. That looks way better. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, I'm not really looking for Xcode Gen. All I'm really wanting is an Xcode project that I can actually throw stuff into. But what I should hopefully be able to do here, import M3 data. I'm going to have to add a bunch more imports, but this should hopefully all work. Right, let's do a build and see where we get our compiler errors. How such module do I have? Now let's build M3 data and make that build. Oh yeah, for some reason Apple no longer puts in a products thing. When you want to get access to the actual build products, you can't easily. Behavior, show derived data. Okay. Because yeah, and how are you meant to add dependencies now? Apple, why do you make stuff so much more difficult for people? There's literally zero reason to drop the products thing. Right, let's just close this and open up. Right, can I copy 3? But you can't. Can't even add hope this is then going to be smart enough. Frameworks. Okay. Relative to build product. Said don't copy. There we go. Okay, we're getting somewhere. So this one we can. Oh. Okay. Okay. Coppice core. We want to do the same again. So let's build M3 data. This is... I don't think in 17 years of doing development I have ever not been incredibly frustrated when dealing with frameworks. It's always something that goes wrong when you're trying to add a framework or anything like that. It doesn't matter whether it's adding it manually, whether you're creating a new framework, whether you are having to use Swift Package Manager or Cocoa Pods or whatever. Frameworks are always a pain, which is super annoying because they are really useful things to use. They just break everything all the time. So we have that. So what we need to do in Coppice core, we'll switch over to Coppice core and work our way up. So link with M3 data. So at least we're linking. Okay. Now, this is where okay, that should work for the loader side of things. I hope. Let's change that to 10.15. And why are you complaining now? Hey! That is what we call Oh, No, this should already be public. Port data, model reader, port M3 data, writer. Keyless. Let's see, photo containable and next page content. Right. Canvas page. What do you mean? Why is it? Hmm. That. It needs to be public in the protocol. Yeah, public modifier can't be used in protocol. Oh. Oh, but that's public. You have model controller. Here you get it from. Oh. That needs an import M3 data. Hey, isn't this the most interesting thing in the world? Linking as a dealer which is not safe to use in application extension. Okay, I'm sure I've seen that before. Warning, you're doing something that you shouldn't be, but we're not going to tell you how to fix it. I was in a good mood when I started this stream and the next code happened. Right, let's see. Is that going to fix? Morning. Yes. Okay. So Coppice Core is building. So now we try and build Coppice, which will probably fail. And it does. It would be nice if you could have a pre-compiled headers file like you do in Objective-C. So you didn't have to import all the time. Because in Objective-C I'd just do one import of this and it'd be good to go. Right. Canvas inspector view. I don't know. Do any of you in chat ever encounter such frustrating problems when trying to use dependencies in Xcode? Oh, Uli, thanks for the resub. How are you doing today? My mood is currently Xcode. Which really I should be switching over to the dedicated Xcode version of my little robot character. How we actually go about talking about Xcode or talking about Swift, or in this case talking about Xcode and Swift. It's the double whammy today. Of course, the ironic thing is I still defend Xcode as my favourite IDE. It just so happens that I get angry at pretty much all developer tools. And it's like, if this is how angry I get with Xcode, you don't want to see me using other developer tools. Okay. So, we compile. But do we run? Have I got the linking correct? We'll see. You. Okay. Coppice. Ah, that's M-Cubed software. I can't add the shake animation to that. However, I can. I can add a shake animation to my angry avatar when I'm talking, so that when I'm actually saying something, I shake a bit. In fact, I maybe have to make them shake a bit more. Yeah, I can make them really shake now when they get really, really angry. I think I'll keep this on for now. I might go back to... let's have the just vibrating with anger version. Right, so I think the issue here is that team is M-Cube Software Limited, but this team is Martin Pilkington. So if I switch to M-Cube Software Limited and then build and run, hey, it works. Success. So now that we have all that done, okay, so at the moment, I have M3 data in frameworks. The problem is, if I check out Coppice elsewhere, it's going to be looking for M3 data in here. And if I don't have the same directory structure set up, that is going to cause problems. So what we're actually going to do is basically I'm going to create a project on Bitbucket for M3 data. I'm going to push this up, and then I'm going to check it out as a Git submodule. Because Swift packages are being a pain, and still, they're a great way to add stuff in, but they're not what I want to actually use. Then we will use right, repository. That right. If I've just realized Streamline is not actually pushed up anywhere, so I'm probably going to have to, after this stream, create myself a Streamline project as well. Right. I'm going to call this shared code. Shared code for MQ apps. Create project, create repository. Is M3 data. Include a readme, no. Default branch name is main. Include a git ignore, no, because we're going to push one up. Language is Swift. Okay, right, repository. Right. So, what I will do is try to show this in Finder. Add M3 data, and let's add a new group. Call this shared code. Stick M3 data in there. Right, so for M3 data, what we are going to do, first thing is setting. Ignores opening editor. I'm going to go back to Coppice, settings, ignores opening editor, and we're going to copy, paste those into there. Right, so now we can go back to M3 data. Now, Sinister, I don't know if you saw on Friday, I went through what version control is and how it works. But if not, I can go through it again for you so that you can understand what it is and how it's useful to developers. Okay, so this is a really good way to see, because this is a brand new project. So what we have here, we have our main project with an initial commit. And that just added just a bunch of basic documents. So what we're going to do now is do a new commit. And we can see here, I stage all these, you can see all of these changes that have happened. Now they're all in green at the moment because we've added all these files. So these are all shown in green. But this is basically showing all the changes we have made since we last did a commit. So if I commit this, added model files, model start files, and I commit. You can add a more detailed description, but I very rarely do that. And I click commit. That is now committed. And that is now stored there. But the thing is, we still have this previous version here. So if I wanted to, I could, for example, check out this. And if you check out, it's basically saying, take this version that's stored in memory and put it into the working copy, which is what is actually written on disk in terms of the files there. So if I was to check this out, we're now here, and you can see down here, we switched back to what we had before. If I switch back to this main branch, we've now checked out this main branch and they've appeared again. So we can go back in history. Now, if I show you Coppice's history, these are all the changes that we have made today, updating all these various bits and pieces. We'll have to tweak some of those because I think that some of these M3 data things aren't meant to be there. But if I go here, you can see Coppice's history. And over time, I've been committing things. So, for example, this commit here, if I expand all, you can see that I made some changes. So in this case, it says I removed these two lines, but added all of these lines. In this case, I effectively removed that with this, but in the dark green, you see that the real change is I added those things there. So I can go back to any point in history. In fact, I can scroll all the way back to my initial commit, 9th of July 2019. And I can go back to any point in this. And this gives a lot of flexibility. For starters, if I decide, oh, I've messed all this up and I want to go back to the state I was before, then I can just select all this and do discard local changes. Now, I'm not going to do that, but that is basically a throw away everything that is not committed. But you can also do it fine-grained, like I could select here and you can discard particular bits. So it allows you a lot of fine-grained control. If, for example, I wanted to do a update to the last version, which is 2021.2. Say I wanted a 2021.2, 2021.2.1. Then what it will do is I could go here and create a new branch from this. And I could do, let's call it bug fix / 2021.2.1. So here I've got a new branch and I can start adding more commits onto this branch that is based off the build from the 22nd of November. I can then, once I've finished, merge those changes back in. Now I believe, do I have, yeah, you can see here, this happened here with 2020 1.2, where I branched off here to fix a bunch of bugs and then I merged it back in. So you can see you've got these two diverging branches. So these bits here were not part of this bug fix. These were for the next major version. But there were changes up here that were just for that bug fix. So you can actually work through it. In fact, if I show you, for example, Sparkle, this is where you've got lots of different people working. So it goes and branches off and people are doing different things and then they're merging back in. So it works really well for collaboration. But let's delete, let's switch back to main and delete that branch because we don't need it. So yeah, you can go that far back. Anytime you make a commit, it goes all the way back. And as long as the commits link up, they will exist. I mean, for example, you can go on Linux and look through their commit history, and that will go back years and years and years. I mean, I don't think they're in Git, but I do have, in fact, let's see, what do I have in terms of... No, I don't think I have, but I mean, I've got some repositories that go back to like 2011, 2010, some even earlier than that. They're probably not all in Git, but you can go back as far as you want. In terms of memory, not massively. I mean, it's storing this stuff on disk. Now, it does depend on what you are storing and the particular format. Git is designed, Git is the source control I'm using. It is designed primarily for building software. And a lot of source control programs are designed for building software because you're dealing with text. So it only needs to really store the differences between text, which is like, oh, these characters have changed here and these other characters have changed there. So it isn't all that memory intensive. If you do certain actions, it can be, but that's only temporarily. It's not like this is all stored in RAM, this is all stored in disk. So if I go into M3 data, there's actually a hidden file .git here. You see, there's all these objects here that contain all of the data that is actually stored in Git, and you get your references and all stuff like that. So it's just all in this folder here, all the data. So effectively, when you push stuff up and bring it down, it's really useful. Oh, it is a good tool for art. Some people do that. The issue is that it depends on the particular. I mean, for Coppice, I have art stored in here. Like the actual Photoshop files are not. But for example, if I go into Coppice assets, all of my icons that are actually used in the app are in here. Because the key thing is, anything that is committed, I could go to another machine, check out Coppice, and all this downloads. So it's great for switching between machines. So you can use it for art. It's just Photoshop files. They're bigger, so it stores more on disk. I believe it will still try to diff them. For stuff like 3D work, it may be much better because your textures are generally big, but your textures may not change a huge amount. The thing that's going to change a huge amount is the project file that you're dealing with, but the thing is, that is mostly text. Like, it is not something that is needing pixel precision data, because that is all calculated again later. So like a a file for a 3D scene, if you exclude the textures, is a lot smaller than, for example, a Photoshop file of a similar scene. So for something like you do with Blender and stuff, version control should work really well. It's just a case of how much data does it use. So I mean, if I go .git and I get info for this brand new one, it is 20 kilobytes. Well, 42 kilobytes. If I go to Coppice and I go to .git info, so that is 20.5 megabytes for several years of changes. Like I say, it stores diffs, so I think for Photoshop it may try to store the diffs. With Photoshop, you're probably going to want to quit or at least close the thing before like changing back and forward, and a lot of these other tools you want to do that. But for something like 3D rendering, it could be very powerful for all 3D works. Like I say, that is generally much closer. It's also great for finding bugs in stuff. So if I was in Coppice and let's say a bug started occurring here, but I go back to, but I know that the bug does not occur here. And what I can do is, it's called a bisect. There is a command to do this automatically. I generally do it manually because it's a bit easier. But what you basically do is, well, if this one is okay, but this one isn't, let's search by going to the midpoint and see, okay, this one fails. So if this one fails, we know it happened between those two. So we go halfway between and check this out and run the code and see, okay, this passes. So, okay, so it passes here, fails here. So we'll go down and we'll narrow it down, go halfway between. And then eventually you can very quickly narrow it down to which particular commit. And then you can have a look and see, okay, what code changed in here to cause that bug. And it helps you find stuff, so. Yeah, this is great for that sort of thing, where if you do a lot of work and then realize, I don't really want that, I wish I could undo like several days and do something else, and even not even throw that away, but even I want to go back to this point and all these changes I've done, I want to try going down a different route with it to see how that works. And then I decide, actually, I don't like all this stuff. Like a few days later, I want to go back to where I was before. Well, what you could do is from, like, if you've got to this point, say, this is your 3D modeling, you could go here, branch off this point, because this is the point you're happy with, try something else and do commits there. And then you realize, I don't like it, so then I'm going to switch back to the original branch. And work there, and you can just throw away that branch, and eventually all that branch, if you don't keep it around, will just get cleaned up to save space on disk. But if you want to keep it around, it will stay as long as you have it around. So it gives a lot of flexibility. I would recommend getting some sort of UI tool. This is a tool called Tower that I use, but it's like an annual subscription for this, but I like it. There are free tools out there from GitHub, and I believe Bitbucket has a free tool. I believe that's SourceTree. There are ones for Windows as well from GitHub, and I believe SourceTree is for Windows as well. So I definitely recommend getting a UI tool because it makes it a lot easier than trying to do it from the command line. And Git in particular can be a bit confusing, but when you are just using it by yourself and it's just thinking about branching and committing, it's fine. Comes an issue for the sort of work that you do when you do art and stuff. That is when the merging side of things is not going to work. Merging is when you have the two separate branches and you decide, actually, I want to combine the changes from both of them in. For code, you can do that because there's a lot of stuff where it can do like changes here and there. And a lot of data formats for code are, in many cases, designed to allow for that. And when you get issues, it's just a case of, okay, I'm going to read through the code and decide how it works. Now, there are some formats that don't work as well with merging, for example, the Xcode project, but again, you can work around that. But the problem there is that I need to understand what all this means to be able to do the merging, which I do, but it means you've got to learn it. So the merging side of things doesn't really work for art. It's a case of you will go through and just have to pick one or the other for what you are actually doing. Hello, Joke Coder. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing well today. Okay, so what we're going to do, now we have all this set up, we're going to do the other beneficial thing of having source control, is going to add a remote repository. And the remote repository is going to be this, and we're going to name that bit bucket, add remote. Oh, 1 second. We also have to do some password stuff. So now we have Bitbucket here, and if I do a fetch, just make sure that we don't have. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish this branch, and what this does, publish it to Bitbucket, and that has pushed it up there. So on Bitbucket, these files. So if I'm here and I reload data, all of my stuff is up here. So I can see the actual data here. I can go into commits and actually look through those commits one by one, and that is all offline. So if my computer completely died now, that data is now on Bitbucket. Now, it was on Bitbucket before because Coppice is, but this also means that you effectively can get a backup of your stuff. Let's see. Code, doing great. What about me? I am doing fairly reasonable. I'm fairly happy generally. I have just been fighting with Xcode to get frameworks working, which is what we're currently doing now. So we've got this framework that we have just put up, and what we're going to do is we actually have it added here, but it is not inside of Coppice. So what we're going to do now is I do submodules there. I'm going to Coppice. Well, first off, need to reapply all my changes. Okay, and I think no, that's not what I want. That's the one I want. Coppice code. Oh yeah, in there. Free data frame. Let's get rid of that. Right, so if I commit this, add L3 data framework. So that's out of the framework, but what we're going to do now is add a submodule. So the remote URL if I go here and click clone, I pass that in and then select destination. So what I want to do is in submodules, and I can't remember, I believe if I select that, it will stick it in submodule / M3 data. So what we'll do is we'll click add submodule. And no, that didn't work. So what we're going to do is delete module. So local changes. I'm going to try that again. So what we're going to do is submodules and free data. So what a submodule is basically it's a Git repository inside the Git repository. So if I paste that again, select destination, submodules, M3 data, and select and click add submodule. It. Select destination, modules, and 3 data, create, select, add submodule. Right, submodule, git directory, blah 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 blah, Coppice code, git modules. Git module. F. Git module. Okay, hopefully I can delete that. And let's see what happens now. So, whatever time of trying, I don't know what number we're up to at this point. Modules, M3 data, create, select, add submodule. There we go. So if I go to submodules and 3 data, you'll see we have all of our stuff here. It has been added to our Coppice directory, but you'll notice that it hasn't been added up here. We just have a commit and git modules. So if I commit this as M3 data submodule, and what I am going to do is I wonder, can I go from there into Coppice code submodules M3 data, right, let's just remove reference, and then what we're going to do is add our submodules project. Now hopefully, yep, so we're still linking. So it may look like nothing much has changed. However, what this now means is that if I was to check out the Coppice project, it will also check out submodules. When it checks out the submodules, they will be put into that file. So if I commit that, I can double click on here and you can see this now looks exactly the same as when I went into M3 data before. And it effectively is. This is a different copy of that. So if I was to, for example, go into here and let's say I just added a comment. I had a comment saying hello stream. And I go and I save that. You'll see that has now appeared here. But if I go up, it hasn't appeared here as that change. It's just saying that this submodule is dirty. So what I can do in here is go and commit this and push this separately and so on. And then I commit a change here that I have changed what commit I'm pointing to in M3 data. So what that essentially means is that anything in the M3 data folder is treated as part of that Git repository. So it means that I can have this separate Git repository, which means that M3 data I can bring into Streamline as a submodule. So the code is always going to be shared between the two. And any change I make to one, I can push up, go to the other project, pull them down. So it makes a huge difference. It just makes it a lot easier to actually have these dependencies in. So what we are going to do is, I think as we have that working now, I'm not going to create the other projects because I want basically a foundation and an app kit equivalent for throwing all these other bits and pieces in, but we're not going to do that on stream because we've already done it for one thing and that took longer than I expected to. So what I'm going to do, we're halfway through the stream, I'm going to take a short break just to refill my glass, and when we get back we're going to get started on our crop rotation, hotspot rotation and hotspot cropping, which is getting all the stuff we've worked on over the past few months of hotspots, cropping and rotation of images, making them all work together, because at the moment they do not. So I will see you all in a few minutes, and then we'll get on to some fun stuff. See you in a bit. Okay, I am back. So let's get back into coding and do some bug fixing. So first off, let's have a look at what these bugs actually are. Let's make sure it's code's in the correct state and build and run. Right, so we open up Coppice and let's open up this. So we can rotate our image around, but if we crop it then rotate, we lose the crop. Now the reason that happens is that rotating actually replaces the image. We actually go and redraw the image. Now with cropping, we've implemented it so that if you crop and then you drag in a new image, it gets rid of the crop, because that is generally what you would expect to have happen. But we don't want to have that happen in the specific case of rotating. So let's have a look. Look at image page content. So we're resetting the crop rect inside images did set. Okay, but our actual rotation is happening further up inside of Coppice, inside editor. Exactly how are we doing this rotate? Right. So I think what we may end up doing here is we're going to make image a private set, so that you cannot set the image property directly, and we're going to add a set image property. So if I go here, it's a public var, but it's private set. And what we're going to do is add a public func set image. I'm going to have operation, image operation. And we're going to have an enum, which is going to have case replace or case rotate. And then we can have additional cases in future, potentially. So we're going to get rid of that. Current value. Value. No. The so for the crop rect, what we want is switch on the operation. If it's a replace, we want to do that. Otherwise, if it's a rotation, oh, we need to know which direction we'll rotate. Let's add operation rotate left case, rotate right. Rotate left case, rotate right. Now, I want to rotate how do we actually do this? We probably want an affine transform. Because if you have it in the right, you rotate right, it's going to be sorry, in the top left. When you rotate to the right, it's now going to be in the top right. Okay. So let's say I have a rect. Rect. Let's say that's going to be 20, 50, 70, 50. Let's say size equals size 200 by 2. Yeah. Okay, CG rect. Rect. Import core graphics. Import core graphic. Rect.applying. Right, so let transform equals CG affine transform. So the rotation isn't going to be too far because that's going to be pi divided by 2. I want to go to the right, so it's going to be minus pi to transform. What value do we actually want for this? Let's sketch this out. Yeah. Thing. Show the iPad. So let's create our grid. Our 10 by 10 grid. So if we are at point 20, 50, so point 20, 50. But let's have that for each block of 10. So this is our origin. So if each of these is 20, that is no, I don't want to transform shape, I just draw a dot. Right. So with that, our width is 70. So we're going to go along to there. And our height is 50, which takes us to there. So if we rotate this around, we're rotating along the center point, which is 3, 4, 5 along there. 4, 4, 5. Yeah, so around there. So if we're rotating along here, then we should be there. There. There, so we should have rotated there to here. So the points that we actually want is our new origin is going to be 50, 10. And the size is going to be 50, 70. So we're getting rotation, we're getting the 50. It's just rotating it to minus 90. Which makes sense. Because what we want make a amount of sense. Went the other way. $100. $20. So if we went the other way, then that is going to rotate to there. And it's going to be that. There. And 50 should be to there. There. Right. So 50, 10, 50, 70. So this one is going to be the height is going to be 60. Oh, so actually no, that is not 50, that is 100 because the size is 200. So it's 100, 20, 50, 70. That is going to be... Oh yeah, that's off screen, isn't it? No, that is 100, 20, 50, 70. This is going to be 50, 70, but it's going to be 20, 40. That's going to be 50. $110. So I think I make that a var and I do a transform dot so what we probably want is a translation by size dot width divided by 2, size dot height divided by 2. It might need to be minus this. And then transform dot let translate let scale transform scaled by not scaled by nation dot divided by double dot pi divided by 2. Then if we apply the the rotation, close that and open it up again. And let's see if we run. Okay, so I wonder if it needs to be minus and minus. Okay, so it is plus minus. Uh, 120. Okay. Got that the wrong way around. Am I rotating wrong? Just where are we? Dash the changes a sec. Build and run. Right, so if I'm rotating to the right, this light area should now appear on top. And it does. If I rotate to the right again, it should appear there. Okay. So. From rotating to the right, and rotating 90 degrees to the right is negative pi over 2 radians. So why, if I am rotating minus 2 over pi radians here, does it rotate left? So what are we building today? What we're building today really is getting all the stuff we've previously built working together. So image rotation, cropping, and hotspots all work fine if you never combine them. So if you crop and have hotspots, bad things happen. If you crop and rotate, bad things happen. If you add hotspots and rotate, bad things happen. So you want to get all those working together. And the thing that is confusing me is that if I go back, like we're getting the correct values here, just the rotation seems to be wrong. So if I bring up the iPad again, what I am doing is basically we want to rotate around the center point. So what I do, because for the rect the origin is sort of up near the top, I am translating the origin down to around here, like this center point, then doing the 90-degree rotate, and then translating the origin back, which is great because if you rotate left, we should get our points 50, 110. You're rotating to the left, yeah, so you're rotating round here. That's great. If you're rotating to the right, then you should get 100 minus 20. So what we have here in the rotation direction is if you rotate minus double pi over 2, so effectively you're going... Actually, why is minus... Because that... Surely it rotates clockwise, so surely minus pi over 2 is going left. I'm not going like it's. I'm not thinking something incorrectly here. If you go 90 degrees, you're going to the right. You're going clockwise. If you go minus 90 degrees, you're going to... No, sorry. Yeah, 90 degrees, you're going to the right, and that's clockwise. If you're going to the left or anti-clockwise, you're going minus 90 degrees. So this is right. So therefore the question is, why is this? Like, why CI image rotating the opposite way? Well, 0 radians shouldn't really matter because you're not setting what the radians are. You're rotating from a fixed point some way. So what you have to begin with is always 0 radians, and it doesn't matter there. You're taking what you have and rotating it x radians. In my case, pi over 2 radians are 90 degrees. So it shouldn't really matter. And it should be the case that a transform should go the same direction. At least a rotation should. And you'd expect a rotation to always go clockwise, because regardless of whether the 0 radians for something is like the top of the right hand side, if you rotate pi over 2 radians, you've shifted it 90 degrees. So the top's now at the right, or the right's now at the bottom. It doesn't particularly matter. But for some reason, CI image seems to rotate anti-clockwise. So if you rotate 90 degrees, you're rotating anti-clockwise. But if you rotate minus 90, you're rotating clockwise. Which does not make any sense. So what we have here, if I run this, 50, 110, that has rotated clockwise. Well, I mean, so in this case, I'm rotating the rectangle because I want to take a crop rect. If you, for example, this here, this rect is our crop rect. If you rotate to the right, you want to go to here. If you rotate to the left, you want to go here. The thing is, this seems to be rotating the opposite direction. Find an affine transform. If I do an affine transform, rotation. Let's see what DuckDuckGo gives us. Let's have a look. Affine transform. Discussion. The actual direction of rotation is dependent on the coordinate system orientation of the target platform, which is different in iOS and macOS because the first column is always 1. Ah. Playground. iOS blank. Where is it? The apps playground. iOS playground. Right. Let's copy paste this. to here. Let it build and run. Question is, are these going to match up? Okay, they do. So I wonder, it's probably CI images, therefore using a different thing, because if the actual direction is focused on the system orientation, then CI image is probably using a different orientation then. Which says it's different in iOS and macOS, yet iOS and macOS are doing the same thing. Good afternoon, Mr. B. Thank you for the resub. How are you doing today? Are you enjoying your new keyboard? It looks quite the fancy keyboard. Right. So the angle and radius by which it rotates in iOS, positive is anti-clockwise and negative as far as clockwise. macOS, positive is clockwise. Okay. So CI image is using that. You know, why? Why would you do that, Apple? I can understand why they would change the coordinates system, like where the origin is, to be the top left, because for almost any sort of programming, having your coordinate origin in the top left is far better than the bottom left, as it is on macOS. It's why I end up flipping the views. It's why, like, the crop recs for the images are stored assuming the origin is in the top left. This, like, positive being clockwise, negative being anti-clockwise, makes so much more logical sense, because it's the way, like, I mean, I don't know if it's just me, but I mean, in school, I don't know if other countries teach it the wrong way, but like teach it going the opposite way. But for me, it was always a positive rotation is clockwise, and a negative rotation is anti-clockwise. So yeah, maybe a GPU thing. I mean, it could be. I mean, the one thing that makes me think is that if you think about the coordinate system being at the bottom and moving it to the top, if you think of that rotating that way, I suppose it does make sense, because let's say you have, if you imagine your x-axis and y-axis, if you have, yeah, so I think I know how this makes sense. So if you have your x-axis and y-axis there, and this is your origin, if you rotate positive 90 degrees, the y-axis becomes the x-axis. However, if your origin is at the top, you also want a positive 90 degrees to be y-axis becoming the x-axis, then that makes sense. So yes, I suppose it does make sense then, because the reason you're taught this way is origin is bottom left whenever you're taught in maths. But for programming, the origin being in the top left makes so much more sense. But you still want 90 degrees be there because you've effectively just mirrored it. So yeah, I suppose that does make sense. No, it does beg the question. Oh no. Why is the Mac on the iOS doing the same thing here? Now, hopefully that is the case, always. I'm hoping it's not a case of this is technically running in the simulator, so technically running on the Mac and maybe using the Mac version of Core Graphics. I hope it won't be that ridiculous. I'm hoping it's just Core Graphics does it the Mac way. But then we will forget about that for now, and I will add a reminder. So let's have a look at chat. Typing like Grandpa the first time you use a keyboard. Yeah, I could see that, like switching from like your standard offset keyboard to the is it orthogonal keys. I can definitely see that being something that takes a while to get used to. I mean, I use a split ergonomic keyboard, so there's a massive gap down the center of my keyboard, and the keys are slightly different sizes, and it's all curved and stuff. And getting used to an ergonomic keyboard took me a while. I slowed down quite a bit, and then sped up quite a bit later on. So it takes a while, but your brain does manage to readjust to it. It's just the whole problem of typing is muscle memory, and your muscle memory is all slightly different. It's the same thing whenever I use a keyboard that has a horizontal return key rather than a vertical one. I cannot use those keyboards because I'm always hitting for the top part of the return key, which isn't there on like US keyboards and so on. So what we are going to do is... Oh, 1 second. I will be right back. Just 1 sec. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so if I reapply my pages, what we're going to do is rotate, and then we're just going to have the amount that you rotate by. Where is my core graphics plus M3X? Took you a while to learn to hit the bottom right of it. Yeah, I just can't. I always hit that top bit. It's just far more natural and far more what I am used to. So I always struggle on US keyboards. So I'm very particular about keyboards. I've been on the Microsoft ergonomic keyboards for almost as long as I've been coding. Well, not quite that long. Probably 15 years, 16 years. Because I started getting like RSI. So I switched to the Microsoft Natural Ergonomic, which was a big keyboard. But it was a split, curved keyboard, and then eventually I upgraded to the Microsoft Sculpt keyboard, which I've gone through a few of, because as almost every Sculpt owner knows, the nice keyboards, they don't last very long. And it's one of those things of, why do you keep buying this keyboard if it breaks every few years? Because it's a nice keyboard, besides the fact that it breaks every few years. Like certain keys will just stop typing on it. So, I mean, the other thing is that it's a wireless keyboard with a wireless dongle. So a 2.4 gigahertz dongle. Much like my Logitech MX Master mouse has. Of course, the difference is Logitech's wireless dongle works pretty much flawlessly all the time. Microsoft's is so bad that I've bought myself a USB extension cable where I have a USB A to A extension. So the USB A is plugged into the computer and the cable is coming out, and I have blue tacked the other end right underneath the keyboard with the dongle, so the dongle only has to like communicate a few centimeters just to get it working reliably. So what I may do when this keyboard breaks, or maybe even earlier, because I could do because I currently have no backup keyboard except for I have a Magic keyboard, but I don't have a backup ergonomic keyboard, and I've been looking at the Logitech ergonomic keyboard, so I might consider getting myself one of those and using it potentially as a backup keyboard, but it does have a few other benefits. I mean, the big downside is that one of the best features of the Sculpt is it has a separate numpad. So you have your 10 key numpad, but it's a separate module. So you can have your your regular keyboard in front of you, and then your numpad is sort of off to the side where you don't need it. Except when you do need it, for example, when I'm doing my accounts and stuff and I'm entering lots of numbers into spreadsheets, I can bring it over, and it's like just having a pocket calculator sort of thing. I can just breeze through there, and it's out the way. So, and that allows me to bring the mouse a bit closer. So with the Logitech one, numpad is built in. So it's quite a bit wider. But the two key benefits is, one, it has official macOS support, which this Microsoft keyboard does not. I am having to use third-party software to be able to get like various function keys and stuff working. And I have no battery indication. I don't think the caps lock LED lights up when that is enabled. Several of the buttons just do not work at all. It's like there are so many downsides to this. It's being such a good ergonomic keyboard. But this Logitech one has Mac software, where you're meant to be able to customize a lot. The other thing it has is that you can use the unified receiver, which means that I could use one receiver for both my mouse and my keyboard, which would save me a cable and USB port, which I'm kind of tempted just to buy one to try it out to see if I like it, because if I do, even though I love the sculpt, I think it's a fantastic keyboard, if I do like it, the benefits could be enough for me to switch. Plus, I'm just curious. I'm not one of those that goes and buys like mechanical keyboards or stuff like that. I find a keyboard I like, I stick with it. I did the Natural Ergonomic 4000 until the Sculpt came out, and I've stuck with the Sculpt for, I think I've gone through 3 of them. This is my 3rd one. And yeah, so I don't change keyboards that often, so I would like to try it out, and it might be something that I do when my Mac Studio comes, because it just makes things a lot more, makes things a lot tidier on the desk, and it also seems like a good opportunity switching to, I mean, ironically, I've probably switched to the Natural Ergonomic around the time that I got my first Intel Mac. So I've been on Microsoft, switched from Apple keyboards to Microsoft keyboards around the Intel switch. It's maybe quite fitting to try switching to Logitech keyboards when I get the when I do the next architecture switch later this year. I mean, I do have a Logitech keyboard downstairs, though it's a fairly cheap one on my gaming PC, and it's a bit mushy, but I'm expecting a higher end keyboard to feel better, and I swear by Logitech's mice, so... And I do have their keyboard. I use the Logitech Combo Touch on my iPad Pro, which is a case that also has a detachable keyboard. And that is quite a nice keyboard for what it is, in terms of just like a board that's got the a very thin keyboard in. It is quite a nice keyboard, so Logitech know how to do the peripherals and know how to support them on macOS. I'm changing all my peripherals recently. I've got my new monitor set up. I got my Elgato Facecam through, which I'm really pleased with. I've had to do some... I still have to play around with the settings and so on, but I'm really impressed with the picture quality. It is far better picture quality than pretty much anything else I have. Like, even though they're both 1080p, it's better than the 1080p camera in my MacBook Pro that I've got, simply because it's massive, and it's similar quality but far less noise because it is such a bigger sensor. So that's a recommendation for anyone who wants a really good webcam. I'm pretty pleased with it so far. Right, so let's get back to coding now. We've discussed various bits and pieces. Oh, while I'm tapping that, Mr. B, if you're still there, what actually prompted you to get the keyboard? Like, what are you going to be using it for? Because I noticed there's a lot of dials on there. What sorts of things are you going to be planning on using it for? Because I'm quite interested in it, because it doesn't look like the sort of thing I'd want to use a lot myself, but it's like one of the things that I'd want. It looks very much something that I'd want to play around with and experiment with. Oh yeah, I can see how that turning to zoom and so on is useful, because I mean I use the scroll wheel a lot for zooming, and just having a wheel or something that just smoothly moves for like zooming and so on is really nice to have. I used to have my MX Master set up to let me go from one desktop to another, though now I've got this many displays, I don't actually use multiple desktops as much anymore. I used to use them religiously when I was only really using one display. I was using them before Apple even introduced Spaces. There was I can't remember the name of it, Desktop Manager, I think, and that was even better than Spaces because you could position them like all your desktops in a grid. So rather than going just left and right, you could go up and down and so on. So I had all sorts of spaces there, and I eventually configured my MX Master to let me use the gesture button, so you could press down and just move the mouse to the left and move it to the right to switch desktops. But I can see having a knob to switch between them would be quite nice. I can definitely also see how, like, if I had that sort of keyboard, I would definitely use one of them potentially to do volume control. There's something satisfying about a knob for volume control. We can often forget in sort of the world of like just touch screens and flat glass panels and multi-touch and everything, just how satisfying a physical control is, a physical button, a physical switch, a physical wheel. Just psychologically, it feels so much better, and you can also have so much more accuracy because many of these like buttons, switches, dials and stuff, they've been designed over decades and centuries to be incredibly precise, which is something that is probably the biggest downfall of touch, is the precision aspect of it. Touch is great at the big gestures, but for that precision, it's just so nice to have. I mean, there's nothing quite as satisfying as a good, I don't know what the name of them is, but like the switches you flip. Let's see if I can find yeah, one of these toggle switches. These are the most satisfying thing in the world. Just being able to flick those, they've just been crafted over so long that there's just something psychological about these sorts of switches, that they are just so it feels like you're turning something on or turning something off. It's like you've got a lot of power, as opposed to, oh, I'm just mashing on the touchscreen. You should never underestimate the power of feel in something. I mean, Apple does it. Ironically, they do it really well on their trackpads with the haptic touch on those, that is fantastic and feels really good. Yeah, those switches can feel a bit uncomfortable, but the actual click feels nice. It's something that you probably won't want to use over and over, but the actual click, like the resistance and then it just suddenly clicks, feels nice. Yeah, Mr. B, that is very good. Very true point that never having to think about how these things work helps a lot more. It also allows you to use muscle memory. It's nearly impossible to build up muscle memory in touch controls. Like you can just about do it with like a keyboard or something like that, but it's really hard to do. But with physical stuff, muscle memory becomes key, and you can do so much without needing to actually look. I've never been able to get used to a trackpad as my main pointing device. Like the MacBook trackpads are definitely very good, and I know a lot of people at use Sinister who do not use anything else. They just use the trackpad rather than the mouse. But I think it's just, and maybe it's because I've mostly been the desktop person. I just use a mouse that much more. I mean, I bought myself a Magic Trackpad, but that is mostly for testing purposes. It's currently sat on a shelf, and it's going to be for testing gestures because I feel a lot more comfortable using a mouse, especially one that has various buttons. So, I mean, I can, if I've got it set up right, copy, paste. No, I have just realised I don't actually use the copy paste buttons as much on this new. Maybe I should switch them to something else. Right, so rotate by radians around origin. Let us go to our page content and want crop right equal self.crop right dot rotate by radians around image Can we add them to at that midpoint? That way. And we need to build a run because we need to find all the places we can no longer set image. That needs to be a public key. And it don't want did set there. Can't did set a function. And that. One thing I'm looking forward to, I don't know if it's coming in Swift 6, that I think may be approved soon, is the new if-let syntax, where rather than here like having to do let image equals new image, or as a lot of people do, let new image equals new image, you'll soon be able to do just if let new image, and it will convert your optional into a non-optional for you. So you don't end up with two variables being the same. And sign property image. The image place. Oh. Value. Place. Here. Actually want to do image dot content dot image. Dot set image. Rotated image. Rotate and want to do double dot I. By 2. Want that to be positive. Want this one to be negative. Okay, let's see if we've got this working. You literally use a trackpad for gaming. I could use a trackpad for certain games. I couldn't use it for other things, but then again, for a lot of things, I'm not using a keyboard and mouse for gaming. I'm using I've got a PlayStation controller that I plug into my gaming PC for a lot of games. Stuff like Rocket League, I have to play on the PlayStation controller. I cannot do that keyboard and mouse. But it's one of those things of you get used to what you want. I think it was The Verge. They were doing a review on the Mac Studio, and in the video they were showing like different people who were doing different things, and it was like a video editor and an audio editor and the graphic designer. The graphic designer was doing all of these wonderful like brush strokes and stuff in Photoshop and everything. And the thing that surprised you is whenever you think of people doing like drawing in Photoshop, you assume they're using a stylus. This guy was using a mouse. Like he was painting in Photoshop using a mouse. And like expertly painting using a mouse. And it's one of those things of It's amazing what you can get used to and what you can use for tasks that you didn't think like certain tools were really possible for. You can still get good at them. So it's you can use pretty much any input device to do pretty much anything that you want to do. It's just what works best with how your brain works, ultimately. So, let's see if this works. So first, let's see that rotation still works. Okay. Let's drop to there. Right. Okay, so it's not got the correct origin. And again, it's not got the correct origin. I wonder. Let me try something. Get by 30. A new page. Oh, I've broken pacing. Okay, let's do that again. 230 by 230 by 230. Oh, come on. So that goes as this. See you later, Mr. B. Thanks for popping in and thanks again for subscribing, and hope you enjoy setting up your new keyboard. Let's see. Apple style buttonless trackpads under Windows are unusable for coding mouse buttons. Yeah, it's Apple's trackpads are one of those things where it seems like no one is able to get close, and part of that probably is because Apple makes the hardware and the software, whereas everyone else has to effectively rely on Microsoft to some degree, and Microsoft has to rely on the hardware vendors to some degree. Okay. Why can I no rotate? Rotate to the right. Oh, soft dot image. Okay. Okay, CI image. We have that. Rotated CI image. Rotated. Get all of that. Okay, so that is rotated. Oh! Let's we update the actual image. Right. Disable all those breakpoints. So that is rotating. Let's crop to there. It's storyboards then. Let's do that. There. Okay. Right, so I think the issue there is where we're actually doing the translation. So probably do is if we do that and do -y -x and we flip these around, it might fix that. Because we're restoring the origin. If I sit that there, I rotate there. Yep, that was it. Okay. So the next thing is I get that to stay there. But let's get that tree trunk in. Rotation works with cropping. Okay, I think that is progress. Working with cropping. push all those changes up, and as it is about 5 p.m. I think what we're going to do is call the stream there, and then on Saturday we will get hotspot rotation and hotspot cropping working, and look at some of the Mac OS 12 bugs. Because, for example, if I go Pro, you can see here we have an issue where Show Pro features in Inspector is black. And then I believe I had Steve show me. Yeah, there's some cropping here that I don't believe happened in Big Sur. So we'll have to play around with some of these things and get those fixed. But I think that was a pretty good stream. I mean, we didn't get as much done in terms of coding as I was expecting, but we learned a lot of things. We had some pretty good discussions, so I'd say that's a fairly successful stream. So I want to thank you all for watching, and let's see if we can find someone to raid. If anyone has any suggestions, feel free to post them in chat. Let's see. Game dev, and game dev. Have to. This is the problem with all the people I follow tend not to stream around the same time as me, so really anyone else doing any OS development, any iOS development or Mac development. So I guess we'll just call the stream there then. Not rush. Alright. I think we'll call the stream there. So thank you all for tuning in. As I say, the next Coppice dev stream will be on Saturday at 2 p.m. UK time. Though there will be a midweek stream on Wednesday at 6 p.m. UK time, where I'll be doing some more work on my other app, Streamline, which is, well, codename Streamline at the moment, but that is the app that I'm building entirely from scratch on Stream, which is partly why we extracted that data infrastructure out, because I can go and move that over and use it in Streamline for handling some of our data. So hopefully I will see you there on Wednesday. But until then, I hope you have a good rest of your day, a good rest of your week, and as always, happy coding.